Hey guys, welcome back to the Bird's Nest Schoolhouse. My name is Jocelyn. If you are new here, I am a first-time homeschooling mom to a 5- and 6-year-old kindergartner and first grader. And this video is going to be another stop on our around the world journey that we have been doing at a very accelerated pace. Again, if you're new here, we are a homeschooling family from the Virgin Islands, and we are spending our term 5 in Ohio. So we are taking full advantage of the library, of art museums, zoo, different restaurants of different types of food, and things like that. So we are going at a very accelerated pace, and I really wish that we could slow down and really dive into a lot of these continents, but we're only here for one more week, so we are doing our best to fit it all in. So if you've been following along on our journey, we are using Core Knowledge, the kindergarten and first grade continents, countries, and maps. Core Knowledge is a free curriculum, and they have continent studies for both kindergarten and first grade. We are mainly using, at the beginning we use the teacher's guide and the activity sheets and everything, but at this point we are mainly using just the readers, which is what I have here. This is the inside of the kindergarten one. So this week we went on a visit to Asia. Well, that's not true. I split Asia into 2 separate weeks. For the first week we did Far East and Southeast Asia. And then the second week we did Central and Southwest Asia. I have enjoyed everything in Core Knowledge. I've enjoyed the information given. I've thought it's been very age appropriate and just enough to kind of introduce kids to the different continents, the information, the people, the cultures, just like a little bit of tidbit of information. And then we've been using picture books to expand upon that. But when we got to Asia for the kindergarten, we talked about different festivals and things like that, talked about animals, a little bit about animals, pandas and things. For Asia, they talked about China, and they talked about pretty much just about China, but they didn't really expand on anywhere else except for China in the kindergarten unit on Asia. And then the first grade, they combined Africa and Asia into one chapter. So when you get to Asia, you kind of talk a little bit about facts of Asia, about the highest mountain, animals, things like that. They talk about Japan, and they mention India, but that's all they talk about with Asia. So I really didn't use this really at all for Asia because it really didn't give me the information that I was looking for. So we went a little bit in depth with our picture books. Our main book that we've been using for the atlas is the My First Atlas of the World. If you've seen, I've done a flip through of this a couple times, but this is Asia. And again, we use this for 2 separate weeks. We looked for the countries. When we read a book, we would look at where the country was and read the little snippets of information. So this was just enough information for us to kind of kickstart the picture books. Okay, so we're gonna start with Southeast Asia, Far East Asia. This is another reference book that we use for both weeks. The kids really enjoyed flipping through it, looking at the different animals. It's just some good little snippets of Asian animals. And then we also use the Far East and Southeast Asia Atlas by Picture Window Books, which I have really enjoyed using. It shows you where the part of the world is that you're going to be learning about. It gives you the landforms. Pretty much the same as all the other ones: bodies of water, climate, plants, growing and making. So we talked a lot about how there's a lot of manufacturing, how they have similar fruits and vegetables that we have. And then it's got transportation on the back. And again, this is just Far East and Southeast Asia. I did not get the Central and Southwest Asia book. They did not have that available, but again, I really love these books. I think they have really great information for this age range. All right, so now into the readers. One of the things that we discussed about just touched on is how people in different parts of the world tend to have similar characteristics. And to bring that in, we read Eyes That Kiss in the Corners, and it's about a little girl that talks about how her eyes are different than her friends. And this is one of the things that we talked about in Europe and in Africa. And this was a nice book to kind of really bring that in, just about different places in the world, how the people tend to have similar characteristics. This was a nice book. All right, so this is a Thai lullaby called Hush. The kids really loved this book. The mother's trying to put her baby to bed in a hammock, and the baby gets out of the hammock and is crawling all over the place. So you have to kind of find where the baby is throughout the story. But this one was really nice because the kids were like, wait, why is he sleeping in a hammock? And then it also talks about, it shows the house. Let me see if I can find it. The fact that the house is open. Maybe it was this one. And they wanted to, so we were discussing different types of housing for different places. And then here it shows the rice. And so they were asking about how rice was made. So we watched a whole video about harvesting rice, which was really nice. But yeah, we just really enjoyed this book. For Korea, we read Bibimbap, and this is a story of mixed rice, which is a traditional Korean dish. Just the story of this little girl making bibimbap with her family. The kids like this one just because you keep saying throughout the thing, bibimbap. So next up we have Oji-chan's Gift, and this is about a Japanese garden, a stone garden that a grandfather gives his granddaughter. And so it's got some nice pictures of the garden. The kids were like, that's not a garden, that's stone and rock. So our plan was to actually go to an Asian garden, and it was not open yet because of the season, but this was a nice book for a Japanese garden. We did Sorry Sorry Summers, and this was Philippines. And now it's a story of a little girl that visits her grandmother in the Philippines in the summertime and works in her grandma's market. And they make these mango ice candies. So in the back of the book, because we have a lot of mangoes in the Virgin Islands during mango season, and in the back of the book, they give you the recipe. So the kids had me take a picture of this because when it's mango season, they want to make mango ice candy. So this is, again, that going back to that atlas, kind of tying it all into similarities between our island and other islands in Asia. All right, for China, my daughter especially was really fascinated by China. And we read a number of books from China. This is one of those that we read one and then they wanted to read another and another. So for China, this is the one we started with. This is the Neon Monster. It's about the Chinese New Year. And it is a story of a little girl and how this monster comes back. They never expected him to come back, but he came back. And she does all of these things. She made him special noodles. She tricks him day and day again, and she has him eat fish, and then she makes him a rice cake. All of these traditions, Asian traditions that they do on the New Year, and they have fireworks, and she ends up getting rid of the monster for another year. So this one was, the kids had a lot of questions about this, and we actually watched a YouTube video about the Chinese New Year. For the next one, hold on, we did this Chinese kite festival, and again, another video, but she is just really fascinated with Chinese writing. So on a lot of things here, like if she sees Chinese writing, she's like, this is Chinese writing. So she was going through all of the other books. We had a whole stack of other books for the kids to look at, but because this is a lot of books that we spread out over 2 weeks, I'm just gonna put together a list of all of the books that we have used in this whole adventure around the world that we've taken. And I'm gonna put it on a link in the description below, just so that it's all in one place. So if you need any picture books, that we have found, or they're going to be all linked down below. So anyway, my daughter's really fascinated by the Chinese writing. So any book that had Chinese writing that was both English and Chinese, she was really infatuated with. And then there was another book that was called Scroll, I think, which was about dancing Chinese characters. She's just really fascinated with. And I don't know if it's kind of like totally off topic, but if you've ever had your kids draw on the walls, my daughter did that like 2 years ago. So when she was like 3, maybe going on 4, and she wrote all over walls in our house, like on the doors and the walls. And to me, it looked like some sort of like Asian scroll. It was, maybe I'll find a picture of it, but it's really bizarre. And then when she paints like bonsai trees. It's very strange. So I don't know what I believe in, but if reincarnation does exist, it would not surprise me if my daughter was Asian in a past life. We'll just put it that way. So anyway, my daughter was really fascinated with all of these books that we got about China, and especially if it had any Chinese writing. Okay, back on this topic. The last book we read for China was The Beat of the Dragon Boat. So we actually, after reading this, my son had a lot of questions, and we watched a number of dragon boat races online on YouTube. So this is just a story of going to dragon boat, and I think that it had the story, yes, the history of it, of the dragon boat and why they do dragon races. So yeah, this was a fun one for my son. We watched videos of dragon boat races on YouTube. Other than that, we did go get Chinese food, which I'm pretty sure my kids can eat Chinese food every day, or Asian food in general. They just love Asian food. And then, oh yeah, we were gonna go to the Asian garden, but then it was closed. It wasn't gonna be open yet for the season, so we didn't get to go on a specific field trip for that. All right, so that completes the Far East and Southeast Asia. And now we're coming into Middle East and South Asia. I'm getting my brain all mixed up. Over the past couple weeks, I've had a really, really bad cold. So if my voice sounds all like raspy, that's why. Okay, so let's start with India. So we started with Desert Girl, Monsoon Boy. And this book talks about 2 different families in India and the different environments that exist in India, and how one is super hot desert and the other is monsoon season. And it talks about their journey to meet together at the end of the story, away from the monsoons and away from the dry heat. The kids enjoyed this one because it had camels. They had a lot of questions about why they had camels instead of horses, but they enjoyed this. This was a good one just for the side-by-side comparison. And then again, we did not use core knowledge in this week at all, because they do not have any information regarding this part of Asia. Okay, so another favorite of my children, The Wheels on the Tuk-Tuk. So this is a story about the tuk-tuk that is the wheels on the bus, but instead you say the wheels on the tuk-tuk. And it's got different parts of, they talk about rupees, they talk about cows, how there's a cow sitting in the middle of the road and they just have to sit and wait for it. And the kids had a lot of questions about that. They've got elephants. They want to know why the elephants were painted. So for such a silly book, this one had a lot of great information in it and a lot of questions. The kids were able to ask a lot of questions, which is exactly the point of this whole adventure around the world, is just the kids to ask questions and ask why. And then my children's favorite story, I think, from this entire journey, The Monkey and the Crocodile, which is a Indian fable where a monkey outwits the crocodile. It's a fun story where the crocodile wants to eat the monkey, and the monkey is pretty much smarter than the crocodile, and he plays tricks on the crocodile. So they really, really love this book. Moving on to, we have The Knight, the Princess, and the Magic Rock. This is a classic Persian tale. I really enjoyed this one. I mean, just for the sake of the pictures, you know, it's just a totally different culture that the kids have not seen before. But it's a love story, and they live happily ever after. All right. Then we have Song of the Old City. We did Turkey in Asia. This is a song about Istanbul, about a little girl, and it shows the markets and bazaars of Turkey. It talks about tea, it talks about the baths. When we were finished with this one, we watched a YouTube video of about Turkey, and we actually have good friends that are from Turkey, so this one was special to them. We read a story of Palestine, is Hilwa's Gifts, and this is a story of a little boy who goes to visit his grandfather during olive harvest in Palestine, and the tree is called Hilwa, and it's Hilwa's Gifts. And so it talks about how they whack the tree to get the olives out, they take it to the olive press, and they get olive oil from it. So we actually watched a YouTube video on how to make olive oil, in like Palestinian olive oil. So that kind of brought it full circle for them. Then we have The Catman of Aleppo. Now, I had kind of questions. This is a story of a Syrian man. It's a true story because my son is so sensitive, and it talks about war in Syria and the bombing. So I was a little bit concerned, but I decided to go ahead and read it to him anyway, to them anyway, and just kind of, I did give them a warning, like, you know, not, because we do talk about how different places of the world have different lives, that there's war happening. Not everybody lives as we do and is fortunate to live as we do. So I did give them fair warning, like, just so you know, they do talk about war in this book. It's not, you know, it's kind of, it can be a lot for a little kid, but we did talk about it. But the story itself was very, very cool. I mean, how this man, they didn't have much, but he still gave back to the animals, and he saved the animals. And then he was able to, because of his contribution to the cats and the donations that he received, he was able to give back to his community, to more than just the cats, to the children, to the people, just for his love for his country and his people. So again, proceed with caution with this one. All right, last up we have Lou Jane Dreams of Sunflowers, and I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but this is, if you have a little girl or a little boy even, in my opinion, a must read. This is a story of her, and all she wants to do is fly to see the sunflowers. But in Saudi Arabia, women are not allowed to drive cars. And so the wings here are synonymous with driving cars. And this is the story of the little girl that all she wants to do is to fly to see the sunflowers. And she asks her father to teach her how to fly, but he says, only I can fly. All the kids at school make fun of her and say, you're a girl, you're not allowed to do that. Like, you can't do that. And she says, I should be able to do that. It doesn't matter. And so she asks her father again to teach her to fly, and he does. And he takes her to see the sunflowers once they learn to fly together. Then it says, you know, young girl defies flying law. But this one was, again, here, this is her in real life. And she was actually put in prison in Saudi Arabia for speaking out for the women's right to drive cars. And So this here at the end, it has a note to your young friend. And I read this to my kids, and my daughter was like, just had so many questions, and we really just had a really great conversation about how different cultures have different rules for people, men, women. Again, this whole point of this curriculum, the whole point of this program and just introducing my kids to different cultures of the world is to show them that not everybody lives like we do. I think that's so important. And I've just been really loving the conversations that we've had coming out of this. I mean, not just this book, like all of the books, and, you know, just their exposure to see how kids live in different parts of the world and the stories that they've heard. And anyway, I could not ask for more than, you know, just them to be curious about the world around them. Anyway, so that was our journey through all of Asia. Again, I really wish that we had more time to, you know, do more deep dives and just, you know, do crafts and do more activities, but there's plenty of time in the future to revisit. And I'm sure we are going to be circling back, and well, I do plan to do, you know, country studies. So I think this has really been the perfect introduction. Next week, we are going to be doing Australia and Oceania. So I have some fun books for that. And yeah, I really hope I'll be able to do a review on those books. If not, check for it in my Term 5 update. And again, in the Term 5 update, if I don't get it into this video, I will get it into the Term 5 update. And that is a list of all of the picture books that we have used, plus some additional books that I couldn't get from the library or didn't come on time. Yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave it down below. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for following along on our journey, both our homeschooling journey and our very accelerated journey around the world. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.